So along with Owen, we kind of co-host and do logistics for the meetup. And I'm going to also call out Gabe here, who's presenting tonight, but he's also talked a bit about trying to host this summer because we're going to take some time off, and he's also doing some other stuff for us, and he's done lots of talks and other things. So he's effectively also co-organizing, although he didn't want his name on the slide here. So maybe see how that works. Next month I'll get him on the slide. Yeah. So the plan tonight, we're going to do a set of 4 lightning talks, and then we're going to open it up for kind of a semi-guided workspace on directives. And I think we'll say a few things in between those two, but otherwise we're just going to get started. Right? So, Mark, how do you say your last name, Mark?
Kuo.
Kuo?
Yes.
Mark Kuo, who works right here, I think.
At Axiom.
Yeah, Axiom. And where's Mark's heckler? Mark said there'd be one heckler in the audience. Yeah, heckler. No? We'll see. So Mark's going to talk about a true spa. Just before he starts, a few ground rules for the lightning talks. So they're 5 minutes maximum. So I'm going to cue Mark as he goes through with how much time he has left. And at 10 seconds, I'll just let him know it's about to end, and he'll wrap it up. Questions, I know this is sometimes hard, but we're going to ask you to save any questions you have until after, like when the lightning talks are over, and you can approach the speakers and get into a good conversation. And then the last thing is, like, all the presenters get an A for effort. So even if you like horribly disagree with what they're presenting, they still get an A because they're up here and you know they're putting the stuff together and trying to share. So you know, just keep that in mind as you're appreciating what they're doing. Otherwise, that's it. So 5 minutes, Mark? Ready to go?
Yes.
All right. I'll let you find your stuff. We'll start 5 minutes when we get to the back.
All right, welcome everyone to Axiom Zen's Zen. My name is Mark. I'm a full stack hacker at Axiom Zen, but tonight I'll be a front-end developer. So how many back-end people are here? All right, good. You're outnumbered. So how many of you have heard of Firebase? And how many know Ultimate Tic-Tac-Toe? Ooh, okay. All right, so I'm going to be talking about a true SPA. Okay, so SPA stands for Single Page Application. So is Angular a framework that you can write true SPAs? No, not really. Because you still need to wire up your single page application with a back end to support it. So it is not really a single page application, right? So if you're a front-end developer, you still need to talk to the back-end guys to give you some endpoints. So in the end, you still need a back-end person. Back-end person, get it? Come on, tough crowd. All right, so, okay, how about this? How many front-end developers does it take to get to restart a server? None. It's a back-end problem. All right, thank you. So in conclusion, Angular is not a true SPA. It is a cat SPA. What is a true SPA? So a true SPA has to be a single static page hosted on S3. So you can host it even on Dropbox or GitHub Pages because it is a static page. And most importantly, it has to be built exclusively by front-end developers. So let me show you what a real true SPA looks like. So this is going to be a live demo and a lightning talk. I know. Call me crazy. And then probably am. So this is an implementation of the Ultimate Tic-Tac-Toe as a true SPA. And Ultimate Tic-Tac-Toe is basically like an advanced form of tic-tac-toe where you not have one board, but you have 9 boards of tic-tac-toes. So just remember that this is hosted on GitHub Pages. It's a single static page. And as you can see, It is real time with a delay. But that's the Wi-Fi. There you go. So this is a real-time multiplayer ultimate tic-tac-toe as a single static page. That's pretty insane, right? So how does this work? That's where Firebase comes in place. So Firebase is a backend as a service, real-time backend as a service. So Angular has data binding, right? Two-way data binding. What Firebase allows you to do is bind that scope of yours with a database. So any client connected to Firebase will have to share the same scope. So instead of two-way data binding, you now have to crisscross X-way data binding, which is totally mind-blowing. But more importantly, the implications of this for the front-end developer is what really matters. Because you do realize now that as a front-end developer, you can build real-time apps all by yourself. So what that means is freedom, empowerment for the front-end developer. Front-end developers are cool again. All right? So don't let the bearded back-end guy tell you otherwise. You can now ship beautiful women, applications all by yourself. All right? And that is a true spa. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Baby spa. A future front-end developer? Yeah, that's good.
I believe I am.
Okay, so next up is Gabe, and he's going to talk about $provide decorator.
All right, hello. Joel just said my name is Gabe. I'm going to talk about, there we go. Yes, I'm going to talk about $provide decorator. Why? Because it's great. So first, I'll talk about provide. Provide is a sort of a pseudo service that is responsible for registering components in your application. And it's a pseudo service because you inject it into the config block, and it has methods on it that you've probably seen in different contexts before. So you can call $provide.service, .factory.value, constant provider, whatever, right? And you've seen these in another context, which would probably be this one, where you register a module and then you call .service on that or .factory on that. So these are the same things in essence. So you can register services from inside of your config block using $provide. But there is one more method that provide gives, and it's called decorator. And the reason why you can't call it on your module is because it's just a little bit different. Its responsibility is to wrap components rather than just register them. And so this term of a decorator is a little bit of a misnomer because it's not like a traditional decorator presenter pattern, right? And I'll sort of show you the syntax to give you a bit of an example. So can everyone see this? Okay, you can. Sorry. So we register some factory called some service, and all it does is return a string that says hello, right? And then we pass provide into the config block, and then we call decorator on provide. And provide takes two arguments. One is the name of the component that you want to decorate, and the other one is just a function. And this function is very similar, or is the same as the other functions that you would pass when you want to register a service or a factory. You can pass in whatever you want to it as a dependency, but you also get the added treat of this $delegate. And $delegate is the service itself. So in this case, your $delegate is some service. So then we can manipulate our service and then return it. So in this case here, I just call to uppercase on hello, I get hello. Great. So it's more like a component interceptor, because once you create one of these things, every time you want to call some service, you have to pass, or it's already been passed through this decorator, and you have no choice. So that might seem like it kind of sucks. I'm not quite sure what the next slide is. This is the straight from the Angular docs. The description it gives is to override or modify the behavior of a service. So it is sort of like a decorator, but not really. I only have 2 minutes left. Great. So here are some use cases. The first one, and this one might be a little hard to see, but one is so you can modify core libraries. So here, in the first part here, I copy the service that I want to modify. So I'm going to modify Q. I'm going to copy it onto a different object. And then I'm going to redefine what so Q, the promise library, has this method called all. And I'm going to redefine what it does so that it takes the second argument and just logs the message that you take as a second argument. Okay? And I'm going to take that, and I'm going to create a new service called Q plus messages that returns that modified version of Q. And then I'm just return the original Q. So now I've modified this core library, this Q library, and I can inject Q plus messages into any other part of my application that I want. Please do not modify a core library and then just straight up return that. That's an awful idea. Never do that. But I think it really shines. The delegator really shines. I have 1 minute left. Perfect. Or decorate really shines when you want to modify the behavior or extend the behavior of third-party libraries. So in this example here, I want to modify UI router's state factory service. Okay, and sometimes like you want to say do a force reload of your current state. Well, if you want to do that, you have to pass in these very specific options: reload true, inherit false, notify true. Right? And then call state.go and pass in the current state and the state params. And so why not just modify the state service to have a function called force reload that I call? And now anywhere I can just call force reload and it will do that.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. So here's my sources. Thank you.
There's a future front-end developer again. Yeah. So next up is Owen. He's going to talk about the difference between. That's where you.
So I'm going to try live coding for this, which was probably a really bad idea. But we're going to give it a go anyway. Can everyone see this okay? No. Oh shoot. How's that? Yeah. It's about as big as I'm going to get. Anyway, so I've got this controller. And it's returning, spitting out on page, and let's be all smart and stop putting data in my controller and break this out into a service. But the problem is, what do I use? I have constant, I have value, I have factory, I have service, and I also have provider. Which one of these do I use to actually tell the injector which one to do? The short answer is they are all the same thing. They're all provider. So quick jump over to the Angular code. And this is actually where you're instructing the dependency injector how something should be put in. So provider, that's basically your low level, like does everything. But you'll notice provider, there's this factory thing, it actually returns a provider. And a value returns a factory. And a service also returns a factory. So they're all essentially the same thing. At the end of the day, they're just syntactical sugar. So you can't really go wrong. So, but there is differences. So if I take Bob and return Bob, so we'll go Bob C because he's a constant, and save this, I should start seeing Bob C on the left. Yes. One nice thing about constant, whoops, is you can use it in your config. So when your application is bootstrapping and building up all the services, you can actually use constances in your config. So config, yes. You cannot have dependencies. And I'm going to run out of room. You also can't use the decorator, which Gabe showed us. So that's the value. What I could do is I could go value friend, and I'm going to also give this Bob. This will be a V. and friend. And if I try to put this friend into the config, I'm going to get a really helpful error out of this, uncaught object. Not so good. Anyway, so I can't use, excuse me, but what value does give me, so config no, dependency also no. I won't get into it on time, but decorator yes. Because value is actually a provider, you can decorate it and muck around with it. The next one up the chain is factory. So I can take a function, and now with factory, I get lovely dependency injection. So timeout. Hope this will work. So now with a factory, of course. Bob's not signed. Why is Bob not signed? Thank you. Line 7. Big points and free axiom swag for you. Awesome. Bob, and then Bob changed. Now, factory, basically, the big thing that it gives you is dependency. So with that factory, I can kind of return whatever I want. I can return a number, I can return whatever. So this is your singleton that's running around that you can sort of inject into anything you want. One really big pattern in JavaScript is I can basically make a class object. In this case, it's a person. So I'm going to, in this case, new person. Excuse me. So now what this will do is it will instantiate this person, and what I'm actually going to do is give it Bob. So I can inject it from our const up here and push it in here, and good to go. Now I have a factory. But notice this object here, I can actually use dependency injection rate using sort of standard Pojo classes and stuff. So what's a service? Service is essentially syntax sugar for this. So now I'm just overriding the dependency friend with service here. So this factory line and this service line are exactly the same thing, mostly. So it basically gives you shorthand to expose these kind of objects, constructors, and that sort of stuff straight into your dependencies. Last but not least is the old provider, which you'll probably almost never use, but this is one. Oh god. Friend provider, I can totally do this. This dot get equals function. Return. Return.
Parting words?
New person. Bob. Hope this will work. Provider basically allows you allows you to config your provider before it boots up. Oh.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Owen. So, last but not least, Joris is going to talk about Grunt for the win.
Okay, so I'm going to try to introduce as many Grunt plugins that I use on a daily basis in 5 minutes. Who here uses Grunt as part of their development workflow already? Right, a lot of you, not nearly enough. Hope you're using some build automation, otherwise you're making life difficult for yourself. All right, so. That is not right. Okay, I guess I'll just do that. Okay, so who am I? I'm a big fan of Angular. You can check out my GitHub page. I've got a bunch of open source directives and whatnot. I work for a company called Wardell. They're a management consultancy here in Vancouver. We happen to be hiring, so if you know anybody or you are looking for a job, come see me. So why Grunt? One word, basically automate. It's fast, it's flexible, there's tons of plugins that do pretty much anything that you need to do. So basically, you just set up a config file where you specify all your tasks. Yeah, if you can read that. We're basically loading some params from a composer.json file, setting up our uglify tasks, which is going to minify our source files. We're setting up a banner that gets prefixed to the output, setting some params in that. Loading some files here. You can load files. It's pretty smart with loading files. So here we're loading our source files, all the JavaScript files in that folder, and in the other folder we're recursively adding all the JavaScript files from that, and then creating an output file that has a unique name depending on the version of our app. And then all you do is just run grunt uglify in your console, and you're compiling your code. So another plugin, Grunt contrib watch, is really nice for executing tasks when your files change. It works really well with tasks that do basically anything to your code. So JS hint, uglify, less, JS beautify, grunt karma. Here you can see we're setting up a watch task. We're setting the reload option to true, which lets you, it basically reloads the browser if you have live reload set up, so you can see the changes right in front of you. Yeah, you can also ignore folders, so like your cache folder, your logs folder, you can ignore them, so it speeds up performance a little bit. And this is what we call a multitask, so you can just write down as many tasks as you want within the watch task, and then you can run them individually from the console just by running grunt watch : the task name. Next one is match depth. So normally you have to load all your tasks in the grunt file. If you're using lots of tasks, it gets kind of annoying. So you just include the match depth line at the top of your grunt file, and it'll just include all your grunt files or your grunt plugins from your package.json file. Grunt usemin. It's pretty useful for not having to specify your source files in the grunt file. So in your HTML file, let's say like your index.html file, you just list out all your assets in individual script tags. So it's really nice during developing, because if you have an error, you know exactly where the error is happening, and you don't need to use source maps. And when you run the usemin prepare task, so say like for your uglify task, it'll just pull in all the files that you've included in that HTML file. It's just smart enough to cherry pick them out and know what files you're using in your app. Grunt Karma is Angular's unit test runner. Works really nicely with Karma coverage. Generates some nice coverage reports. Works really well with continuous integration and Grunt coveralls. Check it out. Grunt Cucumber.js is an end-to-end test runner that works with Cucumber.js, and you can wrap protractor around it too. Generate nice HTML reports, and it captures errors too. If you've ever tried to run end-to-end tests and you get some weird error, your console just gets littered with output. So this kind of just wraps it and prints it nicely into an HTML page that's easy to read. And then yeah, you can also write your tests in Gherkin, which is a nice readable way to write your tests, which you see on the bottom there. Grunt Bump is a pretty simple plugin that just bumps your version number when you're deploying your app, say, or right before you deploy. Contrib Clean is a plugin that just cleans folders. So when you're compiling stuff, especially like say your coverage folder just gets littered. So just whenever you're deploying or anything like that, you can just run clean and it'll clean up all your files for you. OpenSSL is a plugin that lets you encrypt your configuration files and check them in the Git if you care to do so. It's just a nice way to share parameters between team members.
10 seconds.
That's it.
Great. Thanks, George. Cool. How about one more round of applause for all the speakers tonight? Great. So we're going to do a few announcements. Oh, right. So we don't have much to talk about except our usual encouragement. If you have ideas about, or energy to contribute to the meetup, please come and talk to us or send us an email. We're thinking about.
Yeah, we're always looking for speakers, topics, whatever. You could just have it as an idea or whatever. Come talk to us. There's other people here who can help. Kind of if you have, just bring that idea into the presentation or a demo or whatever. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a talk. It could be like, hey, here's this cool thing I built in Angular. That would be sweet. So just kind of anything if you're interested in sharing with the group, let myself or Joel know.
Not that we're desperate, just we're not desperate. The idea with the lightning talks was to take some of the pressure off, although ironically there's a little more pressure because you're trying to squeeze it in, but it is actually a lot less like a burden compared to a half an hour or longer talk. There's a lot less responsibility. You can stick to one point. So it's it's a good kind of environment to test out speaking in front of an audience and sharing something you're doing. Let us know. Otherwise, Gabe is just going to mention something very cool he's doing for the meetup.
Sorry, can I exit?
Gabe got 30 seconds.
Yeah, great. Okay, so just wanted to let everyone know that I am on a mission to. I created an organization on GitHub, if the page will load. And you can check it out. It's Angular.js. Vancouver, Angular. Okay, it's not loading. So it's just Angular.js with a V in front of it. And so the goal is to sort of aggregate all of the talks that we've given so far and in the future into this single organization with a repository for every meetup. So I should have that going in a few days. I just need to write a couple of generators so that I don't actually have to do anything. Just let it generate the repost for me and what have you, right? So I encourage you to check that out. I don't know. I guess you can't star an organization, can you?
Can you even follow it?
You can follow. Maybe. Can you follow it? Okay. Follow it, and then I'll post it in a few days. So if you've given a talk before, I will probably send you an email asking for your permission to post it in one of these repositories so that I can sort of get all of them. If you're not comfortable with that, then of course you don't have to do it. But in the future, what I would like to happen is I create a new repository for a new meetup, and then someone just submits a pull request to add their presentation to the repository. Cool. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabe. Axiom Zen. Do you guys want to chat, plug?
They're very shy.
They're super shy. They've given us this awesome space here, and they're like,
so.
Yes. Oh, we've got a lot of team members here, so just stop by and talk to them.
Who are the
okay,
Axiom?
They're way too humble. They're
Axiom.
every Axiom person I've talked to has been like super cool. They've got a bunch of jobs out right now, so if you like this space and kind of what you see, you can actually work here. Yeah, so I'll plug for them because they're not going to. So.
And who are they again? Who are they again? I said those hands were up.
So
like
yeah, look for people in
black
shirts, Axiom something on the back. Go chat with them. They're cool. And yeah, and if you have any questions about the presentations that you saw, just grab them at how did this thing work? I don't understand. But whatever. Cool.
And I assume that we'll try and get the presentations into the repo.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. So here's where things get interesting. So what we generally do is we do some presentations and then we go into this kind of like semi-organic like hacking coding space. And generally, a few people trickle out. Sometimes lots of people, which is kind of that's okay. So I think what I'll do tonight is I'm just going to subject everyone to my little introduction to what we're going to do. And then if you're heading out, we'll say bye. If you're staying, then that's great, and we can carry on from there. Okay, so no one can leave you. What's that?
And there's beer.
Yes, and there's beer, a keg of beer. Is that all that's going tonight, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so the idea is to create a space and kind of like focus on directives. So directives, in my opinion anyway, are kind of the bread and butter of Angular. They're these mysterious legendary, it's this mysterious legendary sort of feature that no one totally understands, and that like if this, the moon's rising and shining through the door and it's like the year 2014, then it might work, right? It's like one of those kind of Indiana Jones things. For me anyway, it was like this magic. So it's this very important feature that everyone's sort of kind of not really sure how to use well. But it's core, to, I think, to really taking advantage of what Angular can do. And I think it becomes more true as your application ages, right? So that the value of directives sort of increases as your application becomes more complex and takes on more legacy and so on and so forth. So it's really important that you get to know how to do this stuff. So the idea is I'm going to suggest some Angular directives to write, and then we're just going to write them. If you choose, you can also just drink beer and not write them, but or you could do something else entirely. It's a suggestion. So the idea is we're going to reinvent some wheels.
And you should have to write a directive to gain a beer.
Oh.
Using the provider.
Nice. A little decorator action in there. Go.
Angular humor needs some work, but we'll. So what I'm going to suggest we do tonight is try and write some of the Angular directives. So Angular it's actually, they dog-fooded their directives API, and a lot of the magic that you were like, ooh, that's amazing, that's an Angular directive, which is built on the directive API. So, and that's the same API you would use to build your own custom directives. So my suggestion is that we try and write, depending on your kind of experience with Angular, some green level, some yellow level, or some orange level directives, and compare them to what the Angular team wrote. And I think it would give you a really good look into how to write clean Angular code and the basics of how a directive works. So that's why we're reinventing wheels, because these directives already exist. So, I mean, I went through the list of Angular directives, and I came up with, I broke it out this way. So the green, that's like the easier one. So if you're just starting with Angular, the green ones might be where you want to start. If you've never, put up your hand like you've not written a line of Angular code before. And it's okay, it's all right. Cool. So what about you have code in production, Angular code in production? It's probably failing right now. All right. So one more time, I just didn't see that. Okay, so like a good many of you have Angular code in production. So good resources if you're just learning. Also, you may want to kind of tackle like the red if you're going to do this. But it breaks out this way. So ng show and hide, which is a directive to show or hide a DOM element based on the value of an expression. All these are linked. I'll put the tiny URL out afterwards so you can use this. What felt like kind of a little more difficult was the event directives. So like ng click, ng mouse down. They're actually all implemented the same way, and they use some more complicated directive kind of features like $compile. So some challenge there. And then ng model is like a total like mind job. It's like an absolute critical, like it really is what binds everything together. And trying to understand how it works would be a good exercise if you haven't done that already. Those are my suggestions. There's also, as an alternative, Angular has a fairly decent developer's guide for directives, and you can walk through that and, or not. Okay, that's fine. So, You can walk through that, extract out the examples, drop them into your favorite text editor, and work through that. Ask some questions, whatever suits your fancy. So that's the plan. Any questions? Something. Come on. One question, people. It's got to be one question. There you go, James. Where's the beer line? It's right behind James, I think, is where the beer line starts. So if you're heading out, thank you for coming. If you're staying, we'll just sort out around the tables. And yeah, thanks. Yes. So to find this, can you pull that up? Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's 0 right there. There it is. Then Angular.